Hey guys, welcome back to the Australian Property Review podcast. If you're into property, money, policy, and what all of this actually means in real life, you're in the right place. I'm Mady, Ryan's with me, and today we're getting into a question that sounds simple at first, but gets messy really fast. And we keep hearing that the government wants to hit wealth, trim tax perks, and make the system fairer. Okay, fine. But when you actually follow where that pressure might land, it doesn't look like only rich people should be paying attention. Ryan, this is one of those stories where the headline sounds clean, but the real world version definitely doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Because once these tax changes leave politics and hit the real market, the pressure starts moving around. And suddenly, it's not just big investors thinking about it. It's renters, it's smaller landlords, it's younger people trying to build wealth, it's families using trusts, it's even banks changing how they treat investor borrowing before the full thing has even settled. So that's really what we're talking about today. Not just who the policy is aimed at, but who actually ends up feeling it.
Let's start there because a lot of people hear negative gearing changes and think, good, investors lose a tax break, renters finally get a chance. But that's not guaranteed, is it?
No, not at all. That's the bit people keep flattening. If investor tax settings change in a tight rental market, you can easily end up with less investor demand before supply improves. And if that happens, renters can wear more risk, not less. That's really the warning running through these pieces.
So the policy target might be investors, but the pressure can move wider.
Exactly. That's the thing. Housing policy and tax policy are not always the same thing. You can make a tax change that sounds fair, but if the rental market is already tight, the real world result can get ugly pretty quickly.
This bit shocked me more, to be honest, because even before the policy fully lands, banks are already changing behavior. That's a big deal.
Huge deal. One of the key points this week is that Macquarie has told brokers it will stop counting negative gearing benefits in serviceability for some established investment property purchases after budget night, unless the property qualifies as a new build.
Which basically means what in plain English?
It means some investors can borrow less now, before the tax rule even properly starts. Not because they've got no deposit, not because they've got no income, but because the bank is saying, we're no longer treating that future tax benefit as support in your borrowing maths.
So this isn't just a tax story anymore, it's a credit story.
Exactly, that's the value in this issue. People think these are just budget headlines, but the bank side makes it real. Once borrowing power changes, behavior changes.
And when people say investors, I think a lot of listeners picture some big operator with heaps of property. But that's not always who gets hit first.
No, a lot of the time it's the smaller investor, the one with one property, maybe two, the one who's not rich, just trying to make the numbers work. That kind of investor feels a tax hit, a credit tightening, or weaker confidence much faster than someone with scale and buffer. And once enough of those people start saying, nah, this isn't worth it anymore, that changes the market too. That's why the rental angle matters so much.
So again, the public story is one thing, but the actual behavior change happens in a different place.
Yep, always.
Now let's talk trusts because I know some people switch off as soon as they hear that word, but they probably shouldn't.
No, because this is where the story gets very real for families. One of the big warnings this week is around bucket companies and discretionary trusts. Tax specialists are saying the effective tax rate in some cases may not stop at 51 or 63%. It could move closer to 70%, depending on how the rules land. That's being treated as a warning scenario, not a guaranteed outcome, but it is serious enough that it could change behavior before the law is final.
That's massive.
It is. And the point isn't just, wow, big number. The point is that a lot of families and business owners use these structures because they were seen as normal planning tools. Then suddenly the debate stops being about fairness and starts becoming about structure risk.
And then there's the stamp duty trap too.
Exactly. Because even if a family wants to restructure to get around the new problem, moving property out of a trust can trigger stamp duty at the state level. So a federal tax change can push people into a restructure that creates a state tax bill. That's the trap.
So even the solution can cost a fortune.
Yep. That's why people need to stop hearing this as just a technical tax debate. It can hit real family wealth planning.
The other part I found interesting is the politics of this, because this is being framed like a fairness reset. But that doesn't mean younger people automatically love it.
Exactly. One of the strongest lines in the pieces this week is basically this: young Australians don't just want the system punished, they want it to work for them too. They want a shot at housing, but they also want believable ways to build wealth if home ownership takes longer. And the concern is that this budget may narrow some of those alternatives.
So, if a younger person is already struggling with rent, already struggling with deposits, and now also feels like investing pathways are getting narrower,
Then fairness might not feel that fair. That's the political risk here. The message is designed to sound like we're standing up for people who've been left behind. But if those same people feel more boxed in after the change, the story starts falling apart.
and then there's the broader economy sitting behind all of this too. Because if people were feeling rich and secure, maybe they'd absorb more of this. But that's not really the backdrop right now.
No, and that matters a lot. Australia's unemployment rate rose to 4.5% in April from 4.3% in March. Employment fell by 18,600 and participation eased to 66.7%. The article's point is not that the labor market has collapsed. It hasn't, but that it's no longer running hot.
So, why does that matter for this budget story?
Because a tax squeeze landing into a softer jobs market is very different from a tax squeeze landing into a booming one. If people feel less secure about work, less secure about borrowing, less secure about buffers, then all these policy changes hit a lot harder psychologically as well as financially.
All right, boil it down for me. What's the real lesson from all this?
Whenever a government says, we're only hitting the wealthy, you should always ask one more question. Who else has to move because of that? Because markets don't sit still. Banks react, investors react, families react, renters feel it, borrowing changes, planning changes, confidence changes, so the headline may be about rich people. But the real story is often about everyone standing nearby.
All right, that's it for this one. If you like this episode, follow the podcast wherever you're listening, share it with someone who'd get something out of it, and subscribe to our newsletter too so you don't miss the next one. And if you want more property, money, and policy coverage, head to Australian Property Review.